Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Melisa. On this session, I will add a resume from the last week English and title it A Constitution Without Constitutionalists, the path of constitutional development in China with my friend namely Azis and Gasa. Okay, we start. This article will focus on recent constitutional development in China along two lines. One constitution is the official, by the way, and I did it with the Supreme Public Court's judicial interpretation of the Key Yuling case in 2001, which opened up the possibility created with great enthusiasm for judicial application for the 1982. The author is the unofficial published but Tableville and by the Sun inside it section in 2003, when the public for the first time since 1898 expressed strong protests mostly via the internet against local government misconduct. The article will review the main constitutional development achieved along this line and will determine their success or failure. Finally, it will demonstrate the inherent limitation of the populists by the constitutionalists when active in institutions saying which government at various levels of the constitutional are more of their status. Therefore, having a constitutional without constitutionalists is a condition on which China has been struck for a long time, and for good reason. If there is a judicial review is the most obvious and direct cause of the absence of conditionalists. A system of government committed efforting the rules spelled out in the Constitution when the government committed of enforcing the rules spelled out in the Constitution when the Supreme Public Court or SPC explicit implement the 1982 Constitution for the first time in one of its activist decisions. And many constitutional experts wrote about necessary to establish some form of judicial review, but it's not filed. Number two, why an unenforced constitutional may still be useful. Constitutional state. By Western standard, the Chinese constitution is a dead letter. The contrast to the living constitutional, and which actually grows as it is implemented and adapted to social change. Reality Chinese constitution like any meaningful mechanism for implementation and led unmeaningful of official offense. Instead, a long list of good ideals without ability to fulfill it. Assessed from a Western perspective, the distinction between constitutional norm and reality is by one means extraordinary in the context of the story in China. The difference simply expressing judicial commission and apparently requested by constitutional amendment on governing the state according to law and establishing a social state according to the rules of law, but over the status quo because effective awareness for the law would and naturally to limit the distortion of official of various level and reduce opportunities for slicing breeds. Next, long life unconstitutional. Many people are frustrated with the plight of Chinese constitutional, and that the correct constitution is just a force meaning decorative norm and not a fact. However, that does not mean the constitution is useless. A self-serving official then, of course, to ignore the constitutional, but people may begin to take it serious because after all, it's sold for their benefit that a constitutional was made in the first place nevertheless, and my purpose of the article is to show that popular constitutions and support for the constitution, however minimal of the impact, has made a decisive difference in China's situation. In summer 2007, short after a property law came into effect, a couple in Chongqing manipulatively determined a judge their house 26 agents compulsory demolition, and judge successfully forced the local government to bow public pressure and insert completion to satisfactory level. Okay, for the text next chapter, resume will be conveyed to my friend, and namely is Azis.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Azis Iksarus Kenantias, NIM 102210088. Here I will continue the presentation for Melisa. 3. The rise and fall of official constitutionalism. 3.1. The appearance of the first constitutional case as a surprise, the case of Keyuling v. Sensioki. It all has now become a silent milestone in constitutional history of China. 28 in 1990. He passed the interim examination further into a special profession, or zongzuan, and was accepted by the Jining Commercial School. His absence letter was stolen by his classmate Shen, who later studied under his name and go on to get a decent job at a bank after graduation. He came out the world only 10 years later, during which time he suffered from difficulties in finding good jobs due to lack of technical education. 3.2. Limitation and debt. Unfortunately, subsequent developments negate the prospect of developing constitutionally enforceable rights. Chinese judges have not taken any step to consolidate their power under the first constitutional case. Instead, they have chosen to avoid using the Constitution. Since 2001, there has not been a single constitutional case, so to speak. This is not to say that mainland China does not make anything progress on constitutional issues. After all, because the essence of every modern constitution is to protect rights and interests of the people, it is natural that constitutional protection will become ineffective unless and until the people themselves demand it. 4. The rise of populist constitutionalism, the Sun. The Zhigang incident and his inheritance, the judicial innovation illustrated in the Keyuling case are representative of official efforts to improve institutional performance or to correct official wrongdoing. However, such attempts are rare and without the support of the people. Usually, they dead, with little lasting impact. Not a few government officials are enlightened and cautious, but ordinary men and women the Constitution was designed to protect. 4.1. Tragedy and its immediate institutional impact. In March 2003, when China and the rest of the world were grappling with SARS crisis, personal tragedy hit Guangzhou and finally sparked public outrage opposite the ancient system of treating the migrant population in Chinese cities. San Zhigang, 27-year-old graduation from Wuhan Science and Technology College, her Hubei province, come to work as a fashion designer in the economic part booming city. On the evening of March 70, he went to visit the internet cafe as usual, without bringing a temporary residence permit as identification. He was arrested mistakenly by the police as an illegal immigrant to the city and taken to the Guangzhou Detention and Repatriation Transfer Center. It seems, after arguing with management officials about his treatment, he was beaten by fellow inmates and died a few days later. 5 months after the tragedy of Sun Zhigang and 3 months after becoming public event, the State Council announced a completely different new regulation natural. 4.2 Significance and Legacy. The San Zhigang incident not only put an end to the notorious system, which arbitrarily restricted personal freedom. In particular, the peasants who formed the most of these densely populated countries. It triggers a series of civil rights movement that result in or has a significant impact on a number of legal and institutional reform in China. These include ongoing reform on the household residence system, 49 work-based education program, criminal justice and death penalty, different from detention and return regulation. But the revision of the desired rules is a much more difficult task as it meets serious resistance from the local government, who had derived most of their income from the profitable taking by pay, compensation below market value. It remains to be seen whether or to what extent San Zhigang, the model with success, once again in providing meaningful protection for people's property and basic livelihood. That's all for me, and the next presentation will be continued by Gasa.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Gasa Pratama from Group 2. Will continue the presentation from my colleague Azis and Melisa. 5. Sun Zhigang model limit and so on. Despite the death of constitutional activism in the part of the judiciary represented by in the case of He Yuling 2001, China's constitutional progress continued along the lines of the populist intestine by the San Zhigang incident 2003. From Sun Zhigang to Tang Fujian incident 2009, China's constitutionalism is advancing in very slow and difficult speed. Despite my overall positive evaluation it remains to see if the spirit of Sun Zigang's tragedy and its popular impact will be continue to push for initiatives for reform which ultimately reform its root. The cause of the tragedy caused by the unuse of the institution. 5.1 Limitation of Sun Zigang's model. Even is even if Sun Zigang model continue to operate in a social environment with limited freedom of speech and press, it still suffers from some serious limitation. The cost of constitutional development is very high. Usually needed sacrifice of human life in order to raise sufficient public awareness, create adequate social impact, move the central government to take any action. Zigang and Tangfusion lost their lives in a dramatic tragedy, and only the tragedy of their magnitude created the level of public impact necessary to bring limited institutional reform. 5.2 Outside of Sun Zigang, the main flaw of Sun Zigang model is seen in the fact that the public plays a passive rather than an active role, giving approval or disapproval to certain events currently occurring and which usually involve seriously problem, such as housing area. Even the public reaction has made a difference and managed the push central government to take corrective action. This post facto correction inevitably comes too late. Instead of increasing the institutional capacity of the regime to prevent abuse of power, Sun Zigang's model in essence only provides a trigger to start the repair progress. Number 6. Conclusion: the future of people constitutionalism. China's constitutional experience corroborates Larry Kramer's thesis on popular constitutionalism. 79 for proving constitutionalism will not come or constitution of the people do not participate actively in its creation and enforcement. To change its constitution to constitutionalism, China needs a set of institution arrangements that make its government accountable to its citizens so that it will fully enforce the constitution and the law. Even more importantly, it requires active citizens who are mature and brave enough to claim their own rights through this institution. That's percentage of us group 2. If there is a shortage, I'm sorry for the big amount. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.